Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit
No, you're
that
the
the
puppet.
Russians.
No, you're the puppet. You are. Last night, it was easy to see that Hillary Clinton had gotten under Donald Trump's skin during several key parts of the debate, and that wasn't by accident. It was by design. Clinton has carefully prepared, successfully honed her three-debate strategy for weeks. As one of our next guests, Ezra Klein, points out, the Clinton's campaign has coolly analyzed Trump's weaknesses and then sprung trap after trap to take advantage of them. Weeks before the first debate, the New York Times reported Team Clinton was consulting with Tony Schwartz, ghostwriter of The Art of the Deal, to come up with ways to needle and undermine Trump. They also sought advice from psychology experts to help create a personality profile of Mr. Trump to gauge how he may respond to attacks and deal with a woman as his sole adversary on the debate stage, cataloging strengths and weaknesses as well as trigger points that caused him to lash out in less than presidential ways. That strategy paid off just minutes before the end of the first presidential debate, when Hillary Clinton triggered a week-long meltdown in Trump world by bringing up former Miss Universe.
This November.
Okay, good.
One of the worst things he said was about a woman in a beauty contest. He loves beauty contests, supporting them and hanging around them. And he called this woman Miss Piggy. Then he called her Miss Housekeeping because she was Latina. Donald, she has a name.
Where did you find
her
this?
name
Where
is
did you find
Alicia
this?
Machado.
Where did you find
and
it?
she has become a U.S. citizen, and you can bet she's going to vote this November.
Okay, good.
Joining me now, editor-in-chief of Vox, Ezra Klein. His latest piece is called Hillary Clinton's Three Debate Performances Left the Trump Campaign in Ruins. And Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root, professor of politics and communication at Morgan State University. Ezra, you've been writing about this in a way that I have found really illuminating, because there is just this ubiquitous sense in pundit world that Hillary Clinton is not a good politician, that she's sort of winning by default, that if we're any other candidate, she would be in trouble. And I think you've made this very good case that actually she's pretty darn good at what she does, and the debates showcase that.
Yeah, it's surprising that we think the first woman to do something that nobody's been able to do before, that we assume that she's just doing it through luck, as opposed to this was really hard, and it took a very unusual set of skills. Look, Donald Trump is in many ways a very weak candidate. He is very vulnerable. He is, in his own ways, fairly maniacal. But he's also a guy who triumphed over a 16-person Republican field in debate after debate after debate, a Republican field that people broadly thought the conventional wisdom held was the strongest, really, in history. And by the way, at the end, it's true, one-on-one debates are different than big debates, but by the end it was Kasich, Cruz, and Trump did not collapse there. What Clinton has done in three debates is concoct and execute really very consistently, very ruthlessly, a strategy to drive Trump crazy. Every single time she begins by needling him, gets him by the 30-minute mark to totally lose his presidential calm demeanor. He begins getting angrier and angrier. She begins springing trap after trap. And then by the end, in every single debate, you have something coming in the last half hour, like "you're such a nasty woman" or the Alicia Machado moment that becomes the story for days, or Trump deciding that he's not going to potentially honor the results of the election. She has baited Trump into destroying himself on national television. It was done strategically. It didn't happen in the Republican primary, and she deserves credit for it.
Yeah, and the point that, Jason, the point that Ezra's made too is that, I mean, there's this thing about like, oh, she's this sort of persona around Hillary Clinton is like she's a grinder. Right. She's like she's over-prepared. She spends too much time, and it's like she had that moment in the first debate where she's like, yeah, I did prepare. Right. And you saw that last night. The moment that I thought was her best moment, aside from the abortion answer, was when he says, you know, we're talking about the rigged, and she just laid out every time it goes his wrong way, it's rigged. That was the product of preparation.
Right, including the Emmy comment. I've said all along that she has played Donald Trump. It's like Home Alone or like an old Warner Brothers car. He falls into every single trap. He falls in a bucket. His hair's on fire. He falls out the window. She's laid all of this out. You can't do that by accident. But I also think there's this, and this is something that I think has fit Hillary Clinton. There's a lot of things you can say about her that are negative. She is patient. Right. She was patient with Bill Clinton. She was patient when she ran for office. She was patient, and she knew that has to be a long. You can't knock out Donald Trump in one fight. She had to do this 3 steps, and I think she's done an excellent job.
Yeah, and Ezra, there's also obviously there's sort of this inescapable gendered frame to the whole thing, right? And you've written about this, and Matt and other people about the sort of archetype of a woman getting sort of steamrolled by a blustery dude in a meeting who doesn't know what he's talking about, but she does, and it definitely has felt that way numerous times in these debates.
Yeah, she has used very much her gender to her advantage. I mean, one thing, too, about Donald Trump is he does not like being challenged by women. That was part of why the person in the Republican field he had the most trouble dealing with was Carly Fiorina. And here with Clinton, he has from the very beginning very clearly not enjoyed being challenged by a woman on national television in this way. But then on the other side, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of coded gender traits that get attached to her, often negatively, that she's cautious, that she's over-prepared, that she's too mannered in her speaking, that she's not authentic enough. There's all this stuff about that she doesn't have that raw, authentic charisma of someone like a Trump, or even if you go back to the Democratic primary of Biden. And she came out and used all of that to her advantage. She took on someone who had that complete authenticity and used her own preparation, used her own care with what she was saying to present a tremendous contrast to the American people between someone who you could imagine in the very dangerous, very high-risk job of the presidency, where you don't want to make mistakes or fly off the handle, versus Trump, who might be a lot of fun to watch on reality television, but you didn't want him being president.
She embodied what we see Michelle Obama always saying. Like when Michelle Obama, when the First Lady gave the speech last week, she's like, look, that feeling that you get when men look at you. You know, Hillary Clinton is the woman that women want to be when they're in that office and in that environment, when they want to get angry, when they want to scream. She's been doing this her entire career. And something else to this I think is interesting. I mean, she's had this whole thing. The white suffragette coloring of her clothing is brilliant. I mean, there is history that you look back at how suffragettes dress. She has a knowledge of history in a way. And she hasn't had to say, I'm going to be the first woman president. She did that in 2008. She's like, I'm going to be the most competent president you've seen in the last 45 years, and I'm a woman to boot.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we've ended up at this point, you know, with a woman who is poised to break the biggest gender barrier in American politics about sort of looking presidential, and the one thing that she unambiguously is trouncing her opponent in is precisely on that terrain. Ezra Klein and Jason Johnson, thanks for your time tonight, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.